Hi, I'm Finn. So I just want to do a video today that touches on the not so great things that come out of growing up in an alcoholic or dysfunctional home. So I did a video that was characteristics or assets that we develop, I believe to be assets, that we can go on to use to our advantage. And then, of course, in growing up in a stressful environment, comes characteristics or our sort of cross to bear, really, traits that aren't so great. And I just wanted to go over a couple of those today. There's plenty of them. I'm just touching on ones that I can give you extra examples on, which means they're ones I experienced myself. There are plenty of different things people have gone through, and mine may not resonate with you. But generally, I tend to find they're very similar. So one of the ones is I think is literally the major one that nearly everyone's going to have experienced on some level, whether it's they manifest it really obviously or if it's very underlying, which is anxiety. So in my case, I can look back and see that I was a highly anxious child. But come teenage years, when my dad started drinking again and it went very, very crazy, I actually developed panic attacks and then went into panic disorder because I was experiencing those 3 or 4 times a day. So, and I really sympathise with people who experience that right now, because it's so debilitating. You socially withdraw. Your life is just not a life at all. So that's how my anxiety manifested, and it remained that way for a good period of time in panic attacks and panic disorder. And then it actually receded to what's generally considered generalized anxiety disorder. So it's sort of like you're living in an anxious state all the time, and you may switch over to a panic attack, but you may move back to a part where you're just constantly anxious. You're just living in a heightened state all the time. You might feel butterflies in your tummy. You feel unwell, nauseous, tense, frustrated. You just can't relax. Your mind never stops thinking. So these are things that I know came from growing up in a very, very stressful environment. And it's one that I just believe nearly anybody who's grown up in that's going to have experienced. Sometimes you don't directly manifest signs of anxiety. So what I mean by that is I really believe anxiety is the foundation of all the behaviour. So anxiety is the feeling or the thing that sits at the bottom. But you may actually have different behaviours that come from that. So you may rebel, you might be very, very angry. You may feel incredibly depressed. I think depression and anxiety are highly linked anyway. But there are things you may not show, panic attacks, for example. You may have not gone down that road, but you may have other behaviours. So, and I also can touch on a couple of the others that I had. So another one that comes out of it, which stems for me, I believe, from anxiety, is addictive behaviour. So you're already anxious. You may not be showing signs of anxiety per se day to day, but you may show signs of addictive behaviour. So in my case, in my teen years, I almost got addicted to small things. I know that's ridiculous. Probably a level of compulsive behaviour, but we had these, it sounds ridiculous, like this, when I was about 14, there was a milk drink that I drank every day. I mean, I drank it that I almost didn't eat. It was a coffee flavoured drink. I think I drank it. I wasn't even brought up on milk. I was brought up on soy milk, right? So the fact that I went back to milk was this coffee flavoured drink, and I'd have it I don't know if I had one in the morning. It was I had one morning, recess, and lunch. And I mean, it sounds so small, but it was these little addictive behaviours that you have in your life, and you can start to see patterns. Another one was just more severe, really, is that I got addicted to exercise to the point that I had to exercise no less than 3 hours a day. And it was never for me about body image or anything to do with weight. It was purely, I was obviously incredibly addicted to the endorphins, because clearly at 3 hours a day on a cross trainer you'd be getting a lot. So, and just so unbalanced. It was always just horribly taking that anxiety that I experienced in my life and putting it somewhere always. I got addicted to studying. I mean, who who gets addicted to studying? Seriously. But it was final year at high school. I moved out of my exercise addictive phase, and the next one, of course, was studying. So I was compulsive. And I did very well in my final exams, but of course, not only did I read the given biology textbook that we were supposed to read, I went and bought. In Australia, different schools have different textbooks occasionally. So I went actually out and bought the other textbooks that you could buy for biology, for example, and read those too, because hey, they may be saying the same thing in a different way, and I thought, I could absorb more information. But it was obsessive. Like, it wasn't coming from a place of, this is balanced, and I'll study for a little bit. It was just like, and I'll give it to you, when you're obsessive, you're incredibly focused, and you can take that focus and you can put into incredibly constructive things. You just also need to know when to let go. And that's the same thing that I experienced, that I've noticed a huge pattern in my life where it's turned from addictive, compulsive behaviour to where it's unbalanced. And I'm a lot better these days. In fact, a lot of parts of my life are highly balanced, and it's such a nice place to exist in, where you can just, pull back and go, no, I'm not doing that. So I believe, obviously, like I said, anxiety is the core part of all of that, and you may manifest the anxiety through addictive or compulsive behaviour. The other one, which is anxiety again, which stems from anxiety, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, but I truly believe, because me analysing myself, so I suffered obsessive compulsive disorder, so behaviours, and I just have so many good stories. Like, it's a terrible thing to go through, and I still have little bits of them, and you literally feel like a crazy person. And let me tell you, if you are suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder, you're not crazy, because a crazy person doesn't question whether they're crazy. So the fact that you're actually doing something like an OCD behaviour, so I'll give you an example, which my brother always pays me out about. So when I was about 11 or 12, and remembering living in a highly stressful environment, but we weren't talking about it. It was just, every few days my dad would be crazy drunk and then sober again. So it was this whole roller coaster. So my way of coping, clearly looking back, was having this OCD behaviours. And one of them was, I don't know how I survived. One was when I was washing my hands. I would finish washing my hands and they were still a bit wet, and I felt the need to go put my fingernails into the PowerPoint. Okay, the PowerPoint was off, so it wasn't actually on, but those little bits, I'd put my fingernails in there and I would almost wait till it felt right. Now this, if you haven't had OCD behaviour, you probably won't get this. You'll see that it's just crazy stuff. But if you have, you may have had that experience with obsessive compulsive disorder where there's a thought. So there's a thought of trying to control your environment, which was when I was doing this sort of thing, it had to feel right, and it's hard to explain what that is, but it was almost like I'd do something till it felt right. And often the background talk that was going on in my head was, if I don't do this, mum will die, or if I don't do this, my brother won't, come out, he might get sick, or something like this, right? It would always be about, if I did this, it would control some part of my environment and it made me feel better. It was very, very, very subconscious. It's just occasionally that I was very aware of the thoughts I was having. There were lots of little ones, we still laugh about some things my brother did actually. He did this weird little tappy dance before he hopped into bed, and we knew he was doing it. My mum and I, we'd be laughing. And I mean, this is the thing, what's weird is you're clearly manifesting these extreme anxiety things, and I'm sure my parents knew, they probably didn't know the extent either, because a lot of things with OCD, you hide it too, and so it's, other people probably notice, sometimes they don't. I didn't switch lights on and off or something, but I tend to push on things until it felt right, or, you can have obsessive thoughts. You could be continually worrying about the same thing. There are a lot of things people have where it's actually thoughts they have. I know a few people who had thoughts that in their later years, in their early 20s, they become, it sounds absurd, but they're paranoid they're going to be a pedophile. There's no evidence to suggest they are. They've just gotten this one thought in their head that, they become obsessed, I can't be around kids or something. And the obvious question to answer that ask them is, well, how do you feel when you're around kids? And of course, they don't experience anything. It's like you're not, but it's the thought. It's this constant thought, and so again, it's really hard to relate if you've never had it, but it absolutely stems from living in an anxious environment, and it's a way of coping. And what happens with OCD is that often, well, what is happening is there are neural pathways that are being put down. So the problem is when you keep doing the same behaviour and you get a reward for that, which is you feel like it's reducing your anxiety, you're creating stronger neural pathways. So you're going to have the desire to do that. It's going to be there even more. So the only way really to stop it is to not do it. And it's incredibly stressful for people to do that, because when they believe they're in control of something, to not do that is it just brings about huge amount of fear. So I absolutely relate for anyone who's going through OCD behaviour. I truly, as you can tell, I'm a very open, honest person, and I just believe, again, a lot of the stuff you go through are your assets, and particularly if you can be authentic and honest about them, because there are people out there that relate, and if you shut them away, if you shut yourself away and you don't share, then I feel like you're not really doing a service to the world, where there might be people who right now have no one they can talk to. So this is why I'm more than happy to share some of the bizarre things I've done. All from, personally, I mean, there may be people who've experienced this and they'll say, I didn't come from a stressful environment. My thing to that would say, yes, but maybe there's something, or there's some anxiety that's underneath all that for some reason. So it's not always because you've gone through dealing with an alcoholic parent or dysfunctional home. It could be a number of reasons that you've ended up being anxious, and this is the way you're manifesting that anxiety. So there are three things. So like I said, OCD behaviour, addictive behaviour, getting addicted to little things or even big things. You may be drinking yourself, you may be taking drugs, and then also just anxiety, which you may manifest the other symptom of anxiety, like I said, which is either generalised anxiety disorder, social anxiety, panic attacks, panic disorder, this sort of thing. You may also have what I consider obsessive behaviour, which is you may be obsessed about your body, food. A lot of people get this, and I always just believe it's not because of your body. So you're not obsessed about your body because you've got an issue with your body. You're obsessed about your body because it's a distraction. And it's a distraction from the other problems in your life. So often we put our energy, this energy that's building about something we can't control, which may be a family member or a problem in the home. You've got to take that energy and it's got to be put somewhere. And often it gets put somewhere else, which is you distract yourself by getting obsessed or worried about something else. And it's just a transfer of energy. And so if you can acknowledge that, if you've got any issues, the body related or, food related, you're obsessive about food, you're obsessive about, maybe you're addicted to smoking, maybe you're addicted to alcohol, maybe a lot of it, to me, as a personal opinion, it comes from anxiety. And anxiety is the thing that's got to be addressed first. And that's why I'm a stickler for, if you're in a situation where you're in a family home that it's highly anxious, I'm always one for getting out of that and finding reprieve from that environment. And if you can't, that you're talking to somebody, and that you're absolutely, I didn't journal a lot. I wish I had written more. I think you need to write out your thoughts. You need to see it, not on a computer. There's been studies about that. There's something far more important that happens when you actually put pen to paper in the brain. Also exercise, don't get addicted, but exercise, major one for depression and anxiety. So real cure for that in a lot of ways. So they're just three things. There's plenty more, as you'd know. So there's plenty more, but I just wanted to share a few of the funny things I've done, and just to, have people get that it's, there's a lot of shame tied up in, some of the things we find ourselves in, or our past, and it's just useless to live in that. It serves nobody. It doesn't serve yourself. And again, probably sort of post-mine is about having a sense of humour. Sometimes, to be light about something, it doesn't take that heaviness away of what it really, the impact it's had on you, but it allows you to move forward if you can look at it for what it is. So if anyone wants to make a comment, or if you experienced similar things, feel free to write it below if you have any questions. So until next time, bye.